Hotline, Eric McClung. Hey, Eric, how you doing, man?
Doing well. How are you guys?
Hey, we're terrific.
By the way, Eric, before we get into this, Eric McClung is like this fantasy sports guru, not just fantasy racing. We're really privileged to have him tonight because he's getting into fantasy football weather time, so he's probably doesn't sleep much. He's going to have all these drafts coming up. He's doing fantasy golf.
What kind of drafts?
Football
Bud draft?
Fantasy football
Bud
draft.
Light draft?
No, he could do that to here tonight. But you can follow Eric on Twitter at Eric McClung and read all his stuff at KFFL.com and fantasyfootballtoolbox.com, I think. I don't know where else he's writing for. A bunch of other places. Eric, thanks for joining us tonight. We're going to Watkins Glen, our second Sprint Cup road course of the year, and Steve wants to know if there's any chance of a road course ringer winning the race.
No.
There we go.
See,
I
knew that.
I answered for you.
I mean, it's been something that's kind of been going on the last couple of years. A real sharp decline in the ringers.
I'm trying to remember the last time a road course ringer actually did win a race.
Yeah, well, I think the best opportunity that we've had recently with a ringer would be with Red Bull. They gave Boris Said a ride once, and then Matthias Ekstrom had a pretty good run there as well. But since then, ringers are pretty much dead. If you look at Sonoma, Scott Speed finished 25th, Boris Said was 29th, Josh Wise 30th. Robbie Gordon, who I thought had a chance to be pretty good, he finished 39th. Had a lot of problems. I'm
going to interject something in here on you. We know Scott Speed. Scott Speed's no ringer, but go ahead. Sorry, I had to get that out there.
Well, just based on he does have a little bit of experience.
Yeah, he does,
and he's been, I think, primarily a starting park guy this year.
Yep.
But the ringer thing pretty much dead. If you're looking at the C list, where in the Yahoo game that we talk about a lot,
yep.
I think Brian Vickers is really the only way to go. Even though he's not really known as a road course guy, ran extremely well at Sonoma. Career best finish of 4th there. Started all the way back in 21st, so that's pretty impressive. On top of that, so no ringers. Brian Vickers is the guy that you want this week on the C list.
Now, Brian Vickers doesn't get enough credit for being a really, really good race car driver. And I think anytime you could pick him, anytime he's in a C category, and if he's in a decent car, I pick him. I'm just no-brainer pick him. Okay, but now let's talk about A's and B's, because that's really one of those guys is going to win this race and finish up front. So tell us what you think there.
Well, I'll start with the B list because that's really we'll go backwards a little bit.
Okay.
Start with the B list because those are really where the big road course type guys reside, and that's Marcus Ambrose and Juan Pablo Montoya. They've won the last 2 races at Watkins Glen. Montoya 2010, Ambrose last year. He's been extremely, extremely good at the Glen. 4 career starts. He's never finished worse than 3rd. He won the pole at Sonoma, led 11 laps, eventually finished 8th. Wasn't all that great, but he's even better at the Glen than he is at Sonoma. So definitely a must-start on the B list. Montoya, however, is a little bit more dicey. He's had a pretty awful season by all accounts. As I mentioned, he did win at Watkins Glen in 2010. 4 straight finishes or 7th or better. At Sonoma, he had a bad finish, but it wasn't entirely his fault. He had no tachometer in his car, so he had to be very, very conservative when he would pit. I believe they used the oil pressure gauge to figure out kind of how fast he was going. And he also spun out late in that race as well. So although he did have a poor finish at Sonoma and probably burned a lot of fantasy owners in the process, it wasn't necessarily all his fault. So if you do want to give him a pass and start him at the Glen, I think that's pretty much the only time you're going to want to start him for the rest of the season anyway. So you can certainly do that. The other intriguing option on the B list is Clint Boyer. He, of course, won at Sonoma, completely dominated the race, led 71 of the 112 laps. Not as good at the Glen, however, which is a little weird because although it came as a surprise as he won at Sonoma, if you look at his history at that track, he's been very good for just about his entire career. So the win really wasn't all that big of a shocker, like a lot of the media kind of led us to believe there. But his track record at the Glen, not as good. Finished 11th last year, only has one top 10 finish and 6 career starts there, which is a little weird because the Glen is a little bit more forgiving. It's not as technical as Sonoma. So I think he could certainly break through. We've seen it in the past where guys, they win that first road course, they come right back, they run extremely well, and either sweep the road course races or come very close to it. So I wouldn't be surprised at all to see Clint Boyer at least challenge for that sweep. The last guy in the B list to take a look at, Martin Truex Jr., finished career best 4th at Watkins Glen last year. He got 3 finishes of 6 or better in 6 career starts at that track. At Sonoma, he led 15 laps. Probably had a career best finish in the works there, but he did have an incident there on the last lap. Didn't finish as well as he ran. So those are my 4 B-list guys.
I'm really interested to hear what you have to say about the A-list drivers because I personally think that the winner is going to come from this A-list somewhere. There are, to me, 4 drivers that jump out at me right away at Watkins Glen, but I want to hear what you have to say.
Well, the 3 guys that I would target, and the 4th would be Jimmy Johnson, but I typically don't start him on road courses.
He's one of my 4.
The 3 guys that I'm zeroed in on, Tony Stewart, 5 wins at the Glen. His resume there is pretty much self-explanatory. Hasn't won there since 2009, however. But he had a career best average running. His career average running position at Watkins Glen is 5th, which is outstanding, and is obviously the best among all drivers. He ran on the average 7th a year ago. However, he was wrecked on the final lap and finished a disappointing 27th. However, he came right back earlier this year. Was runner-up at Sonoma, excuse me. The only problem, and I mentioned this I think the last time I kind of plugged Stewart on the show, is he's really been sort of an all-or-nothing guy. He's sort of a top 5 or bust. Some of these races he's ran not very well at, and all of a sudden he pops up at the end, and he's in the top 5 or challenging for a win. So he's kind of a sort of a dicey proposition, but as I mentioned, his resume at the Glen is pretty outstanding. The other 2 guys that I like quite a bit from the A-list, Kyle Busch, Jeff Gordon. Jeff Gordon started the year off very poorly, but has looked very, very good lately. Of course, he won at Pocono. A win here would certainly almost guarantee him a spot in this case, at the very least, as a wild card. He's won at the Glen 4 times. However, that hasn't happened since 2001. In fact, he only has 2 top 10s at the site since 2007. But he did finish 6th at Sonoma, led 13 laps. He's certainly got the history. Got a lot of momentum going on. Needs that second win really, really bad. So I wouldn't have any problem with starting him, and wouldn't be surprised at all if he wins 2 races in a row. The other guy I mentioned, Kyle Busch, 6 straight top 10s at the Glen and only 7 career starts. Won the site in 2008, which he also won Sonoma that year as well. Started on the pole last year, won the most laps. Very, very good road course driver. Although, he wrecked at Pocono. I believe he was a runner-up at Indy, but prior to that had a lot of equipment problems, things like that. So, again, sort of kind of in that Stewart boat of risky, but if it pays off, it's going to be a win or something extremely close to it. So I think Jeff Gordon on the A-list might be the safest option, but if you're thinking big, I think Tony Stewart or Kyle Busch would be the way to go there.
Well, I feel really good because your 4 were my same 4, so I feel smart this week. We only have about a minute to go, Eric, and I want to get your pick for the race. But real quickly, do you and Darren from Fantasy Racing Cheat Sheet, did you come up with a name for your new stat yet?
Yes and no. We're going to call it DMV.
DMV.
Kind of
DMV.
Yeah, I think that's
DMV.
Right. You have to.
Should be calling it OPR, but that's okay.
That's a possibility. The only problem with DMV, and if you have an idea for this, you can send it to me on Twitter. It's going to be driver something value. We're kind of going backwards. We like the title, but we haven't filled in the middle. We don't know what that M word.
Okay, so
we'll
put that up as a poll. Okay, I got to get your pick. What's DMV tell you to take this week?
Well, the DMV pick is actually Kyle Busch, but I'm going to go against that and I'm going to take Jeff Gordon. He needs it the most. He won last week. He's been very good in the past at Watkins Glen. Just needs to kind of revisit that very successful pass that he has and do it again, because I just find it very improbable that he's going to miss out on the chase. He's been so good for so long. If Martin Truex Jr. is going to make the chase, Jeff Gordon can do it. So I think he gets win number 2, and maybe by the end of this gets in on points. But I think he's definitely getting into the chase. And
there you go. Well, there you go. But Darren's going to be real mad at you for not using his stats said to pick.
Yeah. Obviously, wait a second. Eric McClung is now a meteorologist. He's predicting rain at 173 kilometers at.
What are you
That's the only way Jeff Gordon's going to win again is if you get rain after 173 kilometers of a 355-kilometer race.
This is
Thanks,
the guy
Eric.
who said Jeff Gordon would never win again. Thanks, Eric.
He hasn't.
He is Eric McClung. You follow him on Twitter at Eric McClung. Read his stuff at KFFL.com and FantasyFootballToolbox.com. And okay, who's your pick? I know it's not Jeff Gordon.
Nope.